There's a moment in every missing child case when hope curdles into something darker. When search parties stop looking for a lost kid and start looking for a body. For Lilly and Jack Sullivan, that moment came when investigators found the pink blanket. Not on the ground. Not dropped in panic during a midnight escape. Hanging in a tree. Deliberately placed. 1 kilometer from home. And the tracking dogs, animals trained to follow scent trails through rain, through rivers, through decomposition. Found absolutely nothing. Someone carried those children out of their beds on May 2, 2025. Someone knew exactly where they were going. And 9 months later, someone is still lying about what happened that night in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia. Before we dive into this case, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets darker with every chapter, and you're going to want to follow where this investigation leads. Do it now, I'll wait. Good. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about 2 missing kids. It's about the 2 adults who lived in that house. It's about allegations that surfaced 8 months too late. It's about a biological father who hadn't seen his children in 2 years. And it's about the RCMP carefully, deliberately refusing to call this a crime, while simultaneously treating it exactly like one. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I want to know how far this story is reaching. Now let's go back to the beginning. To the last morning anyone saw Lilly and Jack Sullivan alive. May 2, 2025 started like any other morning in Lansdowne Station. This tiny Nova Scotia community, barely a blip on most maps, woke up to fog rolling off the Atlantic, the kind that muffles sound and makes the world feel smaller, more isolated. By 9:47 a.m., that fog would become a metaphor for everything that followed. Malihia Brooks Murray called the RCMP at exactly that time. Her children were gone. Lilly Sullivan, 6 years old, blonde hair, bright smile. Jack Sullivan, 4 years old, her younger brother, inseparable from his sister. Sometime during the night, they had vanished from their home. The initial response was textbook missing children protocol. Officers arrived within minutes. They searched the house top to bottom, checked closets, crawled spaces, anywhere a scared child might hide. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No jimmied locks. The doors had been locked from the inside. That detail, locked from the inside, should have been reassuring. It suggested the children wandered off on their own, maybe chasing a pet or exploring before dawn. Except Lilly was 6. Jack was 4. And Lansdowne Station in early May is cold at night, hovering just above freezing. The children's coats were still hanging by the door. Within 2 hours, the search expanded. Neighbors joined RCMP officers, combing through backyards, checking sheds, calling the children's names into the fog. The community mobilized with the kind of desperate energy that only surfaces when kids go missing. Everyone knew everyone in Lansdowne Station. Everyone knew Lilly and Jack. By noon, helicopters circled overhead. By early afternoon, tracking dogs arrived. And by 4:15 p.m., a volunteer found something that changed everything. Lilly's pink blanket. The one she slept with every night. Hanging from a branch in a tree, 1 kilometer north of the family home. 2 adults lived in the house where Lilly and Jack Sullivan disappeared. Understanding who they were, and what connected them, is essential to understanding why this case remains unsolved 9 months later. Malihia Brooks Murray, the children's mother, had been in a common-law relationship for 3 years with Daniel Martel. He wasn't the biological father. He was the stepfather, the man who'd moved into that home and assumed a parental role over 2 small children who weren't his. By all outward appearances, they functioned as a family unit. Then there was the ghost in the equation. Cody Sullivan, the biological father, hadn't seen his children in approximately 2 years before they vanished. He'd been paying child support regularly until mid-2024, when he lost his job. After that, the payments stopped. So did the visits, though those had already been sporadic at best. This wasn't a traditional nuclear family. It was a blended situation with complicated dynamics, the kind that exists in thousands of homes across North America. Single mother. New partner. Absent biological father. On paper, nothing unusual. In practice, investigators would later discover fractures beneath the surface that nobody talked about publicly. Daniel Martel was the last adult known to be in the house when the children disappeared. He'd been living there for 3 years, sharing space with Malihia and her kids, navigating the complexities of step-parent responsibility without legal rights. He had no biological connection to Lilly and Jack, but he'd been present for birthdays, scraped knees, bedtime routines. Cody Sullivan, meanwhile, had drifted to the margins of his own children's lives. Whether by choice or circumstance, he'd become a peripheral figure, a name on support payment documents and occasional phone calls that grew less frequent over time. 3 adults. 2 missing children. And within days of the disappearance, investigators would begin asking the question that haunts every case like this: who saw them last, and what aren't they saying? The blanket shouldn't have been there. That's what bothered investigators from the moment they photographed it, bagged it, sent it to forensics for analysis. 1 kilometer is a significant distance for a 6-year-old and 5-year-old to travel in darkness, through unfamiliar terrain, in near-freezing temperatures. It's even more significant when you consider the route. Dense brush. Uneven ground. No clear path a child would naturally follow. This wasn't a casual nighttime adventure that went wrong. The blanket was hanging. Not dropped. Not discarded in panic. Deliberately placed on a branch approximately 6 feet off the ground. A child couldn't have reached that height without help. An adult put it there. Forensic technicians processed the blanket for DNA, fibers, anything that might indicate who touched it last or how it arrived at that location. The results would take weeks. Meanwhile, RCMP deployed tracking dogs to the site, hoping the animals would pick up a scent trail leading away from the tree, toward wherever Lilly and Jack had gone. The dogs found nothing. No scent. No trail. As if the children had simply ceased to exist at that exact spot in the woods. This is where hope starts dying in missing children cases. When physical evidence appears but leads nowhere. When the one concrete clue you have raises more questions than answers. Tracking dogs are extraordinarily reliable. They can follow scent through water, through weather, through time. The fact that these dogs hit a dead end at the blanket meant one of 2 things. Either the children were transported from that point by vehicle, which would explain the absence of a ground scent trail. Or something happened at that location that disrupted the scent entirely. Something final. Investigators marked the tree. Photographed it from every angle. Searched a half-kilometer radius around the site. They found nothing else. No second blanket. No clothing. No signs of struggle. Just that single pink piece of fabric, hanging like a marker. Like someone wanted it found. For 8 months, the investigation moved quietly. Then in January 2026, court documents were unsealed, and the case exploded into public view with information that had been carefully guarded since May. Malihia Brooks Murray had told police that Daniel Martel was sometimes physically abusive during their 3-year relationship. Not always. Not constantly. But sometimes. The word "sometimes" does heavy lifting in that sentence. It suggests a pattern. Incidents spread across months or years. Moments of violence followed by normalcy, then violence again. These weren't offhand comments made in passing. These were formal statements given during police interviews, recorded and documented as part of the missing persons investigation. Malihia had looked investigators in the eye and described a household where physical abuse occurred while 2 small children lived under the same roof. Daniel Martel's response came swiftly and forcefully. He denied everything. Called the allegations part of a narrative designed to make him look evil. He pointed to his cooperation with RCMP. He'd sat for multiple interviews. Submitted to polygraph examinations. Recently provided a blood sample for DNA analysis without hesitation or legal resistance. Most importantly, he noted that investigators had not flagged him for criminal involvement. Despite the abuse allegations, despite being present in the house when the children vanished, despite the blanket found 1 kilometer away, the RCMP had not named him a suspect or person of interest. This is where cases like this become maddening for the public. Someone is lying. Either Malihia fabricated abuse allegations against her partner, weaponizing the investigation to destroy him. Or Daniel Martel is denying a pattern of violence that might explain what happened to 2 children who disappeared from his home. There's no middle ground here. No version of events where both parties are telling the complete truth. The allegations exist in official police records. The denials exist on the record too. And somewhere in that gap between competing narratives, 2 kids remain missing. Cody Sullivan hadn't seen his children in roughly 2 years when they disappeared. Let that timeline settle for a moment. 2 years. 24 months of birthdays, holidays, scraped knees, lost teeth, nightmares, first days of school. All of it happening without him present. He'd been paying child support until mid-2024, fulfilling his legal financial obligation even as his physical presence evaporated from Lilly and Jack's daily lives. Then he lost his job. The payments stopped. Whatever fragile thread still connected him to his children frayed completely. Police interviewed him anyway. Standard procedure in missing children cases. You talk to everyone in the family tree, especially biological parents, regardless of how absent they've been. Cody Sullivan sat across from investigators and answered questions about kids he barely knew anymore. What could he tell them? What insight could he possibly offer about the daily routines, habits, fears of children he hadn't spent meaningful time with in years? The investigation revealed no evidence suggesting Cody had any involvement in the disappearance. No proximity. No opportunity. No apparent motive beyond the generic suspicion that always falls on estranged parents in cases like this. He was a ghost in his children's lives who became a footnote in their disappearance. But his absence raises uncomfortable questions about the household dynamics. Malihia had moved on, building a new life with Daniel Martel. The children had a stepfather who'd been present for 3 years while their biological father drifted away. What did that do to family relationships? What resentments built up beneath the surface? Did Lilly and Jack ask about their father? Did they remember him at all? Or had Daniel Martel become Dad, in every practical sense, the man who made breakfast and enforced bedtime, while Cody Sullivan became just a name, a concept, a person who existed somewhere else? These questions matter because family structure matters in investigations like this. You can't understand what happened without understanding who these people were to each other. The RCMP received 1,030 tips from the public. Each one had to be logged, assessed, investigated. Some were credible sightings. Some were conspiracy theories. Some were well-meaning neighbors reporting suspicious vehicles they'd seen weeks earlier and suddenly remembered in a different light. 8,100 video files. Trail cameras from hunters. Dashcams from commuters. Surveillance footage from businesses in nearby towns. Every frame had to be reviewed by human eyes, searching for 2 small figures, a vehicle, anything that might place Lilly and Jack somewhere after they vanished. 86 formal interviews. Not casual conversations. Formal sit-down interviews with family members, neighbors, delivery drivers, postal workers, anyone who might have seen something unusual on May 2nd or in the days leading up to it. Each interview generated reports, follow-up questions, additional leads that branched into more interviews. Multiple polygraph examinations. The RCMP doesn't publicly confirm who took these tests, but standard procedure suggests everyone close to the children would have been asked. Polygraphs aren't admissible in Canadian courts, but they're useful investigative tools. They create pressure. They make guilty people nervous. Sometimes that nervousness leads to confessions. This is what a missing children investigation looks like in the digital age. It's not just ground searches and door-to-door canvassing anymore. It's drowning in data, trying to find patterns in thousands of hours of footage, looking for the one tip that isn't a dead end. Investigators built timelines. They mapped vehicle movements through the area. They cross-referenced cell phone tower data with witness statements. Somewhere in that massive pile of information, they believed, was the answer. But 9 months later, with all that data processed and analyzed, the RCMP still couldn't say definitively what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. The digital avalanche had buried the investigation under so much information that finding the truth became harder, not easier. Sometimes having too much evidence is worse than having none at all. Late January 2026. The RCMP holds a press conference and makes a statement that sounds reassuring until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. They have no reasonable grounds to believe a crime has occurred. The investigation continues under the Missing Persons Act, not as a criminal matter. But then they add the qualifier that changes everything. This could become criminal as more information emerges. That sentence is doing tremendous work. It's simultaneously telling the public there's no evidence of foul play while also leaving the door wide open for criminal charges. It's a carefully worded hedge that protects the investigation while managing public expectations. Here's what that statement really means. The RCMP has suspicions. They have theories. They probably have a working hypothesis about what happened to those children. But they don't have proof. They don't have a body. They don't have a confession. They don't have physical evidence strong enough to convince a prosecutor to file charges. So they wait. They keep investigating. They keep the case classified as missing persons, which gives them certain investigative tools and powers. The moment they declare it a criminal investigation, the rules change. Defense attorneys get involved. Evidence standards become stricter. The public pressure intensifies. This limbo state serves the investigation. It keeps potential suspects off balance, uncertain about what investigators know or don't know. It allows the RCMP to continue gathering evidence without tipping their hand about where that evidence is pointing. But it's torturous for the public trying to understand what happened. Are Lilly and Jack alive? Did they wander off and succumb to exposure? Were they taken? Are investigators protecting someone? The refusal to call this a crime suggests none of those scenarios have been proven, but the careful language suggests all of them remain possible. 9 months in, the investigation exists in this strange space between hope and horror, between missing persons case and homicide investigation, waiting for one piece of evidence to tip it definitively in one direction. Ground teams started searching within hours of the initial report. Local volunteers, RCMP officers, search and rescue specialists fanning out from the family home in concentric circles. They checked obvious places first. Nearby woods. Abandoned buildings. Bodies of water. Anywhere 2 young children might have wandered in darkness. Air support arrived by afternoon on May 2nd. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras swept the area, searching for heat signatures that might indicate small bodies lying in brush or hidden under debris. The technology can detect temperature differences through tree cover, can spot a living person even when ground teams walk right past them. The helicopters found nothing. Cadaver dogs joined the search within 48 hours. These aren't tracking dogs trying to follow a scent trail. These are dogs specifically trained to detect human decomposition, to alert handlers when they smell death. They're used when investigators suspect they're no longer looking for living children. The dogs swept through forests, fields, properties near the family home. They checked areas around the tree where the pink blanket was found. They investigated tips from the public about suspicious locations. And they came up empty, which in missing persons cases can mean two things. Either there are no bodies in the searched areas, or the bodies are hidden well enough that even trained animals can't detect them. Lansdowne Station is small. Everyone knows everyone. When volunteers searched properties, they were searching their neighbors' land, their friends' sheds, places where they'd been invited for barbecues and birthday parties. The psychological weight of that, looking for dead children in spaces that should feel safe, changed the community permanently. They searched marshland. They dragged ponds. They used ground-penetrating radar on suspicious patches of disturbed earth. They flew drones over inaccessible terrain. They checked septic systems, wells, anywhere a body or bodies could be concealed. Months of searching. Thousands of volunteer hours. And still, nothing. No trace of Lilly and Jack Sullivan anywhere. $150,000. The government of Nova Scotia posted the reward in the weeks following the disappearance, a staggering sum designed to motivate anyone with information to come forward. But read the wording carefully. The reward isn't for information leading to the safe return of the children. It's for information leading to their location. That distinction matters. Location doesn't presume alive or dead. It doesn't promise reunion or recovery. It simply acknowledges that 9 months after Lilly and Jack vanished, authorities don't know where they are. Finding them, in whatever condition, has become the primary goal. Reward money changes investigations. It brings out informants who wouldn't normally talk to police. It motivates people on the margins of criminal networks to provide tips they'd otherwise keep quiet. It also generates false leads from people desperate for money, willing to fabricate stories they think investigators want to hear. The RCMP has to sort through both. Every tip generated by the reward gets investigated, even the obviously fabricated ones, because buried somewhere in the noise might be the genuine information that breaks the case open. What's the weather like where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious how many different places this story is reaching while Lilly and Jack remain missing. But here's what the reward really signals. Desperation. When a government offers 6 figures for information, it means traditional investigative methods have failed. It means they've exhausted leads, processed all the digital evidence, interviewed everyone they can identify, and still have no answers. The reward sits there, unclaimed, growing more ominous with each passing month. Someone knows what happened. Someone knows where those children are. And that person has decided that $150,000 isn't enough to make them talk. Which raises the question, what are they more afraid of than poverty? What truth are they protecting that's worth more than financial security? Someone in that house knows what happened. This isn't speculation. This is mathematical certainty. 3 adults had access to Lilly and Jack Sullivan on May 1, 2025. By the morning of May 2, the children were gone. The doors were locked from the inside. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Someone saw those empty beds and waited before calling police. Someone had hours to construct a narrative, to get their story straight, to decide what they would say when investigators arrived. The 911 call came at 9:47 a.m. What time did someone first notice the children were missing? That gap, between discovery and reporting, haunts this case. In genuine emergencies, parents call immediately. They don't pause. They don't think through implications. They panic and dial. The delay suggests calculation. Someone needed time to figure out how this would look, what questions would be asked, what evidence might exist. 9 months later, the RCMP has 3 people they've interviewed extensively. Malihia Brooks Murray, who reported her children missing and later alleged abuse. Daniel Martel, who denies those allegations and insists he's cooperated fully. Cody Sullivan, the absent father whose distance from the family makes him simultaneously suspicious and unlikely. One of them is lying. Maybe all of them are lying about different things. But someone knows whether those children walked out of that house or were carried. Someone knows if they were alive when they left. Someone knows what the pink blanket in the tree really means. Before you go, I need you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This case isn't over. New information is still emerging. And I'll be here covering every development until we finally get answers. The question isn't whether this will be solved. It's when. And what the truth will look like when it finally surfaces. Because someone is sitting with this knowledge right now, living a normal life while 2 children remain missing. Someone knows. And eventually, they'll break.